Thank you for staying with us. You're still watching The Breakfast on PLUSTV Africa. It's time to look at the global stories that has made it to the front pages of our national dailies this morning. And joining us to review the papers is Professor KAMILU Sani Fage. He's from the Department of Political Science, Bayero University Kano. Good morning, sir. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning, and thank you for having me.
Always a pleasure having you. So this morning we'll begin with the Punch, and the Punch leads with Rivers emergency rule. Federal government taps ex-AGF 11 sands as Supreme Court battle looms. The writer here says Supreme Court may release hearing date today. PDP governor's legal team prepares as AGF says Governors Forum lack local standing. Also on the Nigerian Tribune, it leads with Wike, Ikpeazu, Ugwuanyi, Autumn attend PDP governors meeting. Saraki, Tambuwal, Lamido, Onyola, Udom also in attendance. So of course, we've seen that there's been a ruckus with the PDP, and Rivers having seen what has happened in Rivers State, whereby the emergency rule was being declared there, has kind of like put them in a little space, right? Also, if we think about what happened in Delta State, where everybody there defected, there's a whole lot of work that needs to be done with the PDP. But what's your take on this, especially with the fact that they're all meeting with this Supreme Court battle that is going on for the emergency rule that was placed on Rivers State?
Yeah, you see, the both strains are likely going to be very effective for Nigerian democracy. I mean, they can determine the future of Nigeria's democracy. If you take the court issue first, you see the decision or the judgment by the Supreme Court will determine the fate of Nigeria's democracy. Either way, if they are able to establish and now curtail the influence of the executive in terms of interference in other parts of the arms of the government, I think that will now set a precedence. Now, if on the other hand the judiciary decided to go by the executive, and that one also will set precedence, and it will be in future. That is how our democracy will be determined by the judgment of the court. On the other hand, the issue that is going on in the PDP also will determine the fate of Nigeria's democracy, whether there will be a multi-party system or a one-party system. Now that depends on how the stakeholders are able to resolve the problem. If they are unable to resolve it politically, then we are likely going to see a very weak opposition, and that will now give the ruling party all the way that it needs to consolidate itself. But if on the other hand they are able to resolve that problem politically, they are raising the chances of the PDP and the opposition to do well in the next election, and they are also raising the possibility and the stake for Nigeria to have an effective multi-party democracy. Otherwise, I think these decisions, the two trends, are very important and central to the continuity and stability of Nigerian democracy.
So on the Punch, it also says PDP installs new BOT, that's Board of Trustees members, as governors, map party direction. What do you think they need to be doing right now to ensure that they still have, their say, or that strong force as an opposition? What should they be looking? Because obviously trying to map out the party's direction, we know that PDP has fallen, sort of, especially with APC having to become the ruling party when it used to be PDP. So what trajectory would you see the PDP going through right now?
Yeah, you see, if they want to remain rival, first and foremost, they have to resolve the internal crisis. I think the crisis revolves around personalities. If they wanted to solve that problem politically, I think even the personalities should come down from their table and see their position and see that in the interest of the party, and in the interest of the country, they should now fulfill their own personal ambition and see how do they reconcile their differences, even if it means they have new people that they can take, they can put forward, so they can do that. But if and so long as each one sticks to his own position, they will not be able to resolve that problem. And if they still continue with court cases, and that one I think will not resolve the problem. The best way is political solution, and they know how to do it, and they should not be running around personalities. They should have the interests of the system in their mind rather than the interests of individuals. And they know what I mean. Those who are dragging, it is either them or the system will crash. So I think this is what they have to look and they have to take. So that is their own position. After resolving the problem, they also have to do a lot of homework to see that even though PDP has structure all over the country, they have to come out with credible alternative policies to the ruling party, and they go nooks and crannies of Nigeria and sell this alternative position, and also allow democracy to reign within the party, so that at all levels they will have credible contestant candidates that they will elect through democratic processes. Otherwise, if they don't allow democracy to reign, they don't have internal democracy. Two, if they don't resolve their own problem. Three, if they don't go through the nooks and crannies of Nigeria, I think the PDP will remain a shadow of itself.
Anyways, on the Punch, there's a story here for River State, and it says, I'm not desperate to return as Rivers governor. That's according to Fubara. And on the Nigerian Tribune is also a story there that says, I'm not desperate to return. My spirit has already left there, Fubara. What do you think about this? Would you say that he's probably given up, especially with the ruckus that the River State has been going through for a while now, obviously because of his predecessor, Nyesom Wike? What do you think about this? He's already saying that his spirit has left there. What's going to happen?
Yeah, you see, on the surface of it, people will look at it as if Fubara, is trying to take a soft position on the issue, but we put it in context. Before we said this one, he met with the president in London, and there are high speculation that Fubara is being, undergroundly compelled to take that kind of position. So whatever it is, actually resolving that problem, the peaceful resolution of the problem will be better for the system. But actually what he said raises a lot of concern that look, he's being manipulated or he's being cajoled to take that position. Otherwise, you see there are two parties in the dispute. Up till now, Wike has not shifted ground on the issue. But this person, the Fubara, is shifting the ground, and common sense will tell you that he's not doing it willingly. He's being compelled to do that, so that at least whatever happens, he downs the tension. If he now takes his people, his supporters, that is not so desperate, perhaps that will down the tension. So when the eventual thing come out, maybe that will not degenerate into a crisis or violence.
Interesting. All right, let's move over to some financial matters. And here it says on the Punch, it says federal government states add 57 trillion naira to debt in 18 months. So one thing that we always discuss here is the fact that we keep taking loans, and most times we don't really see what they're being used for. But what's your take? 57 trillion naira, that's a whole lot of money, and we've added that in 18 months. And this is the same time whereby subsidy is gone. And the reason why they said subsidy is gone is because obviously they said they were paying some cabal all the money, and now they're trying to take it out. So the money that we've been saving in subsidy, I'm wondering where that money is, and why are we still taking a loan of about 57 trillion naira that is being added to our debt right now. Your comments, please.
Yeah, you see, the devil is in the detail. If you look at the story, you see that we're heading towards serious crisis in the country because with the mounting debt and there is nothing on the ground to show. That is one thing. But take the statistics and see. Now, what happened is that according to this statistic, according to the story, the federal government spent 150% of its revenue on debt services, which means, you see, we'll be perpetually going around into this debt trap. We will not get out of it the way we are headed. A situation where you have to borrow 50% of your revenue and add it to the 100% of the revenue that you have to just pay debt services. That is not talking about even paying what you borrow, the capital. You are now on spending on debt services. That is one thing. Secondly, if you look at the statistics, it also says that about 50%, 52% or something percent or higher of our, the debt to GDP ratio. So we are actually negative. In fact, not that negative. We are very deep down into this debt trap, and we keep on blindly going into it. So I think that is the danger that we have. And even a time will come when your GDP ratio, debt to GDP ratio is so high that even those creditor will not be willing, because it is a potential that the person or will not be able to pay the debt. So we will be bankrupt. So if we are bankrupt, what will happen? And this is on the immediate time. And on the long run term, we are just engaging the future of the country. So I think it is high time that we have to look at it, despite all the measures that we are taking, in terms of subsidy removal, in terms of tax reform, in terms of whatever we are doing, we are still going down into it. So, like I said earlier or several times, it is high time for the government to retrace its own track and see that the way we are going is dangerous for the country. So it's better we now look at this issue of debt and look at this issue of borrowing and now be more realistic in terms of what we want to do.
Exactly. We need to look at what the reality says. And for me, I can never understand why we have to keep borrowing so much money when we know that we can still manage. I think with every company, and if we're going to look at Nigeria as a business, you cannot be spending more than what you earn. So what we should be doing definitely is ensuring that we're generating more revenue, not plunging ourselves into debt, and knowing that the future of Nigeria is just going to be in debt. So the children, the generations that are to come, are going to inherit debt. So a father leaves an inheritance for his kids. So I'm wondering what the inheritance Nigeria is leaving for the future generations. Just a question. Anyways, over to another story on the Nigerian Tribune. It says NPA denies corruption allegations, says no to misapplication of budgetary provisions. So what's your take on this? I know that in Nigeria, in most sectors, they always say, oh, you know what, there is no corruption. The past administration had come to fight corruption. I don't know how well that happened or how well that worked, but we never see, transparency and accountability. There is a lack of that. And I think when you have that, it's a way for the people to know what you're doing. And even if you say, I'm not corrupt, it's right there. The details are there. People can see it and they can believe you. And right now, there's a mistrust between the Nigerian people and whatever government agency there is. But what's your take on this story? NPA denies corruption allegations, says no to misapplication of budgetary provisions.
Yeah, you see, denial does not mean the thing does not exist. So, but the only dangerous trend is that if we keep on denying that it exists, like corruption, we say it's not there, we are corrupt-free and so on, it means we are not willing and we are not ready to address the problem. That is the dangerous trend. But the fact is that we know these agencies, and we know how corruption is, how deep corruption is in Nigeria. So I think the best thing is not to deny that it exists, but to take proactive measures and also to take measures to address the problem. By the time you deny, it's just like a simple thing. Let's say somebody is not well, he is sick, he refused to accept the fact that he's supposing he has headache, he refused to accept that he has headache. He's not ready to get rid of it, because by his denial, he will not go to the doctor to get medicine and then take it. It's the same thing. So by saying that they are the corrupt free, there is no corruption there, I think they are just not ready to take measures to address the problem. And beside that one, I think they are just discrediting themselves, because it is public knowledge that corruption is rampant in the place. So why do some people have to say that? And look at the living standard of the people, and look at what is happening in the system. So I think the government owes Nigerians a responsibility to address this. By treating it this way, I think we are just allowing it to continue.
Says Obi, how Nigeria can become a beacon of hope for Africa. Blame setback, the writer here says, blame setback on incompetent, uncommitted leadership. I'll take that again. How Nigeria can become a beacon of hope for Africa. Blame setback on incompetent, uncommitted leadership. So obviously we're speaking at the Johns Hopkins University, and he also made a comment that says the labor of our heroes past are now in vain, especially when we look at the economy in Nigeria. But what do you think about this? How do we come out from this? Because saying Nigeria can be a beacon of hope for Africa, what should we be doing? Because if we look at GDP, if we look at the economy, all the statistics there is, it doesn't seem that way. What do you think as a whole in Nigeria we can look at to ensure that we start to flourish and we can be that beacon of hope for Africa?
Yeah, you see, we can do that one by taking the right step, okay? And like I said earlier on, we have to look at where we are now, and we have to look at what brings us to that the present condition that we are in, and then we will trace. There is a saying that you cannot keep on doing something to expect a different result. Yeah. Since we have tried this and we see where we are, so it is a simple common sense that the basic is you look at the policies and the position, and now you now adjust, you retract your own position. That is one thing, even in public policy. Once you have a policy, and then you now assess the policy and see whether it is where you are now. If it is on the positive direction, you continue with it, and you strengthen, you now block all things that will deny you reaching your own objective. But if you find out that you are not on the right course, the policy is negative, then you have so many options. Either you modify it, or you abandon it totally and have a new thing, so that you don't continue on the same track. So it is up to the leaders. Now, I think it is high time that our leaders should know that they are democratic leaders, that they should listen to all these kinds of statistics and the people in and take action on that. But they cannot be denying that one. Like I said earlier, if you deny, you are not taking the measures to address the problem. There is. There are a lot of acts stating that we are on our own course. So as democratic leaders, we should respond. And our response should be in the interest of Nigeria. Responding to the Nigerians' views. Because that is what a democratic government is all about. In simple terms, in a democratic system, it's a government that is responsible and responsive to the people. So by denying this, you are neither responsible or responsive to the people. So that is why we
there's just a lot. Most times when you think about Nigeria, this is multifaceted, whereby I don't know how we can handle everything at the same time. But of course, it begins with one step, just ensuring that we can have a better nation for ourselves, something that we can enjoy. And that way, many people would not want to just leave or go look for greener pastures elsewhere, because that's one of the reasons why people are moving away. So we need to fix our country. That's the honest truth. We need to fix it. All hands on deck, put our hands in the plow, just to ensure that our country can be better for us. Our final story this morning, we'll take it from Nature News, and it says, hunger threatens 36 million people in West Central Africa. And I'm going to tie that to the second hot topic that we're going to have this morning, that says, starving in silence, northern Nigeria's child malnutrition crisis spirals. So in Africa as a whole, right, especially West and Central Africa, we've seen hunger in the land, and this is not even just any hearsay. It's what we see on a daily basis. It's our reality. If Africa is looking to be a progressive continent, I mean, there are other continents that have done that. Look at Asia. Asia is better right now because they've put in the work. If Africa is looking to become that progressive continent, what should we be doing? How can we ensure? Because I think the basic thing is food. That's like one of the most basic necessities of life. And if we cannot even ensure that people can feed, then I don't know how we're going to progress. So what should we be looking at, especially when it comes to feeding this continent and ensuring that hunger isn't what is killing people in 2025?
Yeah, you see, it is not suffering in silence. People are suffering. It's only that the leaders are insensitive. They are not listening to the hues and cries of the people. But if you now take the trajectory in Africa, Africa has abundant resources. And if you look at the weather, if we are to tell even 10% of the Arab land, we will not be crying what we are doing. People think that just because you have natural resources, you have good weather, you have good environment and others, and that is enough. You have to take the positive step in order to cultivate these things and put a lot of emphasis on agriculture. If you look at African countries now, literally they have abandoned agriculture and they have gone to areas that they see are cash cows. So that is why we have a problem. If we are to diversify the system, our economy, I think we would be aware we are. Despite the challenges, there are areas that we know there is issue of the diversification, there is erosion, there is drought in other places. But if you look at the separate of Africa and the way these things are happening, I think we wouldn't be crying what we are doing. And the other thing is, we should also encourage, and take positive step to ensure that we enhance intra-African trade. Because all of us now, virtually all the African countries, what they have is they ship it outside. They don't, we have very minimal, intra-African trade. So by the time the areas that are conducive in terms of producing food and other things, if you have this intra-African trade, I think this issue will be minimized or will be eradicated. And most importantly, we have to take the positive step that we have to stand on our feet. We cannot at this period depend on handouts from the developing countries. Aid is not a way out.
Exactly.
We have to stand. And by the time we stand on our feet, I think we will be able to put ourselves in the map of the world.
I completely agree with you, especially when you say aid, because I think that's where everybody's looking at. We're just looking for handouts. What can we do? But why can't we start to provide for ourselves and, ensure that whatever we're doing, other people, other countries or continents can see us and say, yes, something is happening in Africa. We want to come there, we want to be part of it and have a slice of the cake. But if we do not bake that cake well and ensure that it's looking really good, then we don't make ourselves juicy enough and putting ourselves on the map. Anyways, want to say thank you so much for coming, Professor. It's always a pleasure having you. Thank you for your time this morning.
Thank you for having me.
Have a wonderful day, sir.
Same to you.
All right, we've been speaking with Professor KAMILU Sani Fage. He's from the Department of Political Science, Bayero University Kano. And we've just been taking the global stories that made it to the front pages of our national dailies. We'll go on a short break now. When we return, we're discussing our first hot topic. Please stay with us.